Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Got my buddy here, Gene Autry, next to me. My co-host Steve, and he's in rep form today, and he's got a lot
Howdy,
of
ma'am.
stuff, lots of good stuff,
Howdy,
and
partner.
and actually, I got some stuff too. And if you guys don't mind, I'm going to get right on into the stuff. So,
Let's
today
jump right in.
about something called microdosing. Now, I think that most of us have been there, done that, and been accused of it, either by our own selves or by other people. But microdosing, I think you might find to be something that you have done. You just didn't know what it was called. So let me get into it a little bit, and you guys tell me. Okay, here's a little story now. This is a scenario. Okay, Steve, you with me?
I'm with you. I don't know. We need to know what microdosing is. Tell me, my brother.
I'm going to tell you about microdosing, my brother. Okay. All right. Well, here it is. The story goes: you like someone, you spend some time with them. Maybe you've been on a few dates. Maybe they were even someone you had a relationship with. Okay. Essentially, on some level, they are not ready for something more than you were. Okay, so they weren't as interested as you were. So let's call it that. And,
She's just not that into you. She's just not that into you.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, she or he's not that
Or
into.
he.
Okay, because we're pretty much representing both genders out here. You know,
Yeah,
I know you got that memo that you did. Did you get that? Yeah,
I did.
the memo.
The SH memo.
No touching shoulders and that memo. It
The
was like,
sexual harassment memo. Let's not talk about it. I did get the memo.
okay,
I've been warned.
all right. So essentially, they're just not ready for something more. But you
Yeah.
were. And, you're grandiosing them, you're love bombing them, you're doing the whole 9 yards. And so they pretty much don't really want a relationship with you. Now, if you also don't want something more, but you're enjoying spending time with them and you're just enjoying it for what it is. Okay. So you're going through it for what it is. And but this person essentially tells you that at some level, they're really not ready for anything more than the little bit that they're the rawhide chewy or the couple of bones they throw you now and then, and you get pretty excited about those too when those come in. It's like a bone. Praise the Lord, I got a bone. So, but the bottom line is they really don't want a relationship with you. So now, if you also don't want something more, but you're enjoying spending the time, like I said, and you're just enjoying it for what it is, that's one thing. But if deep down, okay, really, really deep down, you want something more with this person, okay, who has confirmed that they're just not ready and they don't want any more with you right now at this time. So continuing to see that person, to text that person, to make love to that person, or to give that person your attention in any way is a form of microdosing. Okay? So now we got a pretty good clear picture about what microdosing is, right? So, and in this content, it can be lethal, my friend. Lethal. Okay, so we're
Lethal.
talking about something that's going to be, somewhat a little bit of chump change that might be a little bump in your road to relationships and to love, and it's lethal. It can be really damaging. So there are more dangers than the obvious dangers of microdosing. And the obvious danger that this is leaving is it's leaving you unsatisfied. You're like unrewarded, ultimately unfulfilled, and it's not a nourishing form of an investment by no means. And every time that person leaves your life again, or my life again, every time it goes cold again, I feel the sense of a hangover, from missing them. Like they came in, and it was a rush, and it was an adrenaline thing, and dopamine was flowing like crazy. and then all of a sudden they leave again, and you got this like hangover thing going on. So
Sure.
it's now become painful, and the only way out of that hangover is to get my fix again, right? So you got to fix on the person, and the next time they text you, you get this Pavlovian rush of dopamine again. You know that you connect to that person's name. I mean, we all know that feeling. We do.
Sure.
Somebody texts you, and you're like, oh, thank God, here they are. I was wrong.
Yeah.
You get all this flood of all kind of other emotions and other things that you think, where are they texting me? It's been an hour since I texted you. What's going on? Right? Yeah.
Right.
Me too. Man, I've been there. So there's a certain person that when their name comes up on their phone, we immediately get this surge. Okay, the chemical rush. And in that moment, we go, oh my God, it's like you're a junkie. It truly is. It's like, you're junking out because, wow, man, they just gave you what you needed. Okay, so, and it feels so much better when they do. But it's so, let me say it again, so dangerous. Okay?
Yeah.
And it, not so obvious danger. The danger really is that occupying an emotional and psychological focus in our lives as they are, even if they're not a physical presence in our life. They're not taking up a huge amount of space in our week, but if they are an emotional presence in our life, then we never get to have that emotional distance from that person. It's necessary to meet someone new. So,
right. That's a very good point.
I mean, you're caught between two worlds. Because here you are, you're dosing on this person, they're throwing bones and shootings at you whenever they get a chance. And you can't even free yourself up for something. You can't because you're too this person. So, does it ring any bells?
It's ringing bells for me, and it's something you and I have talked about. I didn't know you were going to define it this way, but yeah, of course it is.
It's just there to give you a little boost on it. And say, hey, wake up.
Yeah.
So, me too.
Yeah.
So now, even though the person isn't upset in daily affairs, isn't with us in our lives, and the other thing too is I've been there before too. You can be like a coffee shop or something, and you got people all over. You got chicks surrounding you. So pick up your head, you can look, and you almost see them. You catch their eye, and they were like looking at you or something. But you are so fixated on getting your junkie fix from the one that you're microdosing, and you don't even see what's going around you. Your landscape is tainted. It can be terrible. So you wait for your fix, and you might be saying to yourself, "But Dennis, I don't know that there's anyone else out there for me." So you start making excuses. Excuses for keeping the attachment to someone else. And even if they're just not that interested, So, but we dose them. We keep dosing for our own satisfaction. So there might not be a happy ending around the corner, but you might want to decide to cut this person off completely and go explore and find something else that might be out there. And at least that is a question mark. So you're at least putting a question mark out there. And the person has told you they don't want any more with you is a period. Okay, but if you pretty much just leave and go look for something else, it's a question mark. You're leaving it kind of open. Okay, but when you see that period come along, periods are, they make a statement in a sentence, but in your life, oh boy, periods, as tiny as they are, they got a lot of steam, they got a lot of leverage, So in this situation, I don't want more of anyone else out there in the world as a question mark. So leave the period, start exploring. Don't lie to yourself about microdosing on a person being harmless to you. It's not harmless at any time. your emotional energy, and your psychological well-being. It can be lethal. You don't want a drug. You want happiness, and that's what we're looking for. I mean, as a human being, our focus should be on happiness. So get your ass moving and go find some happiness. Okay? And that's about all I got to say about that.
Well, that was a lot. That was a lot. And
it's a wake up.
So first, it's a wake up. First of all, I'll take the last thing first. I'm glad to hear you say that you're a human being, and we're all relieved to know that to see all the softer side of Dennis coming out. Dennis he's a veteran. He's a veteran, and we're just two cops talking about dating over 50. So Dennis, this is a really good one, and I've got a couple questions if you don't mind, and I'm sure our audience does as well. So microdosing is the term. You kind of defined it. You did define it. And one thing I guess I want to differentiate right out of the beginning, you're pointing out the dangers with it. It's those little tidbits. It's kind of when someone's kind of just keeping you on the line. It's a game. It's more evil than a strategy. It's just giving the occasional nibble, or you said rawhide bone. So there's two things. You could be the microdoser, or you could be the microdosee, right? I could be getting microdosed by somebody, and you or I could be the microdoser. So let's take the evil one first. I think what we're saying to the men out there and the ladies out there. I'm a man though, so I'm going to put this that way first. You know what?
Note that down there. You just disappeared for a moment.
Yeah, and I've disappeared on my own screen too. Let's see if I'm going to just keep talking as if we're recording. Okay. So I think we are. So I guess the first message is, the first message is don't be a microdoser. Don't give it out is what you're saying, right? You can still hear me okay?
Yeah, I've got you. You're 100%.
Yep. And so, I mean, to me, that just seems like evil. I mean, maybe in junior high or high school, and we like to joke we're cops and all this stuff, and we joke around and you use words like chicks and stuff like that. But, these are human beings. People shouldn't be doing that. You're playing with someone's emotion. It might be highly effective to microdose someone and string them along if your objective is just to keep fish on the line. But that's not what we're advocating on this show. So the first thing is we don't want to be like that. And men and women out there, you shouldn't be like that. Even if, the ends don't justify the means. So we don't like that. That's the first one. And then on the receiving side, and I think that's the more important part of the show and of what you've said, Dennis, which is the devastation of that, the psychological impact of that. What I love about what you advocate on this show, first of all, you're just calling truth, and I will too. You have to, because you got those bites. We've given some, but we've gotten more probably. And your point is, you really got to protect yourself. It's a lot more than about just the dating scene or whatever. It's your heart. And, I hope people out there are listening, because we've probably all been microdosed, to your point. I don't even know if it's always on purpose when people do it. But I think now that you're better defining it, I think if it's being done deliberately, it's pretty evil. And in terms of detecting it, I think what you said is true, but classic, easier said than done. I'd kind of like to hear from some people in our audience about, if they've been microdosed and, how hard was it for them to detect it? What were the telltale signs? And then were they able to shut it off? I have the feeling that this is an age and experience and wisdom thing, maybe not an age thing, because we can get older and not get wiser. But I don't know about you. We're a lot smarter about this stuff now than we were in junior high and high school. Back in the days of writing notes and stealing combs and passing notes in study hall and playing with people, we all saw them. There were guys that were ahead of the pack, and they played games. They played hard to get. I guess now some of that we're learning is microdosing. Dennis, let me ask you this. How common do you think this is out in the dating world, particularly since we're talking about 50 and older? How common have you seen this? I'm going to put out a theory that I'd like you to react to as well. Who's better at it? Is it the men or the women that are better at it and do it more often? And how common is it?
Well, I'm trying to figure out which side of that. Where we want to begin with that question. The front end.
Well, start with the gender one. That's easy. Is it men that do it more or women? Because I bet you
Good question. And unfortunately, I don't have statistics on that, so my response would be only a guess at my attempt. I'm only going to guess at it, but I would think that women do it more than guys do, and because I am attempting relationships with women, so my observation would be more with women than with women, hearing from women and what they think about guys, if guys do that to them. And I'm sure they do. But now, is it equal? That's a real good question.
Well, okay, let me
one other stats out there that has significantly blown my mind and completely removed from what we're talking about, just to give an opportunity to think about stats on things. I heard the stats on infidelity and extramarital affairs, and that cheating thing is so much greater with women than it is with guys. And I've always kind of grown up thinking that was a guy thing. I thought guys had that role. I didn't know. I thought that the title to that cheating thing always went to guys, that they were doing more of it. And then I discovered through listening to other psychologists and psychiatrists that women own that title. Women do it more often than guys do. So I'm going to have to.
Okay, let me jump back in then. So I think the psychology behind this is important because you just talked about infidelity, but you also talked about who gives the microdosing more. So a couple things come to mind for me psychologically, and we're not psychiatrists, but we do understand a lot about the human condition, I think. I think a couple things. Traditionally, men are more the pursuer, right? At least in a traditional, maybe old-fashioned sense. Men kind of pursue the women. The women may have their techniques and mechanisms, and they may do it, but in a very, very subtle way. Because let's face it, when you're young, in particular, men are just happy if anybody's interested in them. But I think the men are more often the pursuer. So it's not surprising to me that some people would perceive that women are better at microdosing than men. Our audience may disagree. I'd love to hear from them in comments or emails. So I think that could be true. I do know this, though, psychologically, both men and women can do it. And I actually think, now that I'm in my 50s, I think it's something that women learn earlier because we're the more aggressive pursuers. And again, I'm generalizing. I think it's something as we get in the 50s and beyond, the focus of this show, I think it's a learned behavior, and I think men learn to do it more. So I bet you that inverses a little bit. I bet you men do it just as much, if not more, especially in online dating, speed dating, whatever relationship. It's, we've joked about it. It's kind of catch and release. But I would theorize that these women are more culturalized and learn microdosing earlier, not necessarily to be evil, but just as part of the courtship, stay back process, because it is effective.
On the dishing it outside or on the receiving it?
I think young girls and women probably learn to dish it out earlier than men do. I think that
are dishing out microdosing to their
yes.
Kids. Okay. So just basically what I have said in my little dissertation I just gave about microdosing. So you would agree with that?
Oh yeah, I do. But I think I think the girls are better at it early. And then I think unfortunately, what I've seen is, as men, I think in the 50s, I think they could be just as effective of it. I think especially in the online dating world and stuff like that. I bet you men do it just as much, as my point. I think we're later to the party, and I think it's part of. I'm just giving my opinion. I'd like to hear our audience's opinion on that too. But yeah, go ahead.
I would too. But for the sake of a little brevity on this episode, And I know we're going to try and whittle these down a little bit more, and not because we don't want to lose anyone either. We want to keep this as interesting as we possibly can. So I just want to reiterate something, and that's how many people out there know about or knew about something called microdosing in a relationship.
Yeah, probably not a lot.
Knew what the theory was, or what was happening, the event. Yeah. But I had no idea there was a name for it. There was a name for the event called microdosing. But that's
for sure.
That's one of the reasons for our show, which is a roadmap to the journey of dating and trying to
sure.
over 50 years.
For sure.
So
for sure. I mean, let's hear from our audience about it, but I want to come back to, I think a lot of this is about the psychology, about who's dishing it out and who's receiving it. I really do think that's a big part of it. I think it's going to be a common theme on a lot of these shows. And I want to come back to your thing about the statistic. This show isn't about infidelity per se. First of all, stats, how are they gathering the information? The old joke is 67.5% of all statistics are made up, right? I mean, the more specific they sound, the math just doesn't kind of work either, right? Either there's some extremely sexually active small group of females who are, I don't know how they'd fit it all in 1 week. Either that, or I wonder how the math works on that, right?
I beg to differ, sir.
Okay. All right, sir.
And I think that maybe these stats are coming out of cases of divorce. And
probably
there is are generally reasons for divorce. And some states, I think, still use what are the issues, what are the emotions for divorce, like what was cheating, was it infidelity, whatever. So they're definitely getting, or maybe psychiatrists, psychologists, they're getting stats from somewhere. So
again, I think all these things, they all have an intersection of there's not only psychology, but there's culture and economics and traditional relationships. And I think men are very different from women. We've talked a lot about that. Anybody who tries to homogenize that and say we're the exact same just doesn't understand basic biology, sociology, psychology. We are wired different. Our brains are different. I am going to say this, though. Divorce is so common now. It's typically no fault. It doesn't really matter what initiates it in the U.S. And I bet you over time, as more of those traditional kind of old-fashioned marriages, if we continue to trend towards a progressive, secularized more society where it's less and less traditional, I bet you a lot of these stats even out because, our brains are wired differently, but the ladies are every bit as smart as we are. They're every bit as capable. This is not pandering. They're every bit as smart, every bit as capable. And that means they're every bit as smart and every bit as capable to microdose, to cheat, to do whatever. Anything that a guy can do, they can do just as well, right? You've come a long way. You've come a long way, baby. Great. Now you're just as scummy as some of the guys are. But I'm joking. But I mean, I think things have changed, and I think we don't know where society is going to go. But I do think there's an inversion. I do think girls, as they become ladies, I think they learn a lot of this stuff early on. And I'm going to go a step further, and then we can hold it for a future show after that if you want. But I even think on the infidelity, we need to have a show on infidelity because, in the old days, if a woman was kind of trapped in a marriage, and when I say trapped, no one's trapped in terms of a gun to their head, but they kind of are. If I grew up in a family of 7, and my father was the primary income and worked a couple of jobs, and so think about it. A woman in that situation, it's not easy for her to get out of that marriage. The question then becomes, is that woman more likely to go and cheat? Is that why women cheat? Is it true that it's more than men? A, those are some active women. B, why is that disproportionate? I think only time will tell. I don't think at the end of the day, I think we're different in terms of men and women, but I don't think it's going to be a lot different. If people aren't, quote unquote, really locked into a covenant marriage or a marriage based on religious principles and monogamy and all that, then I think the longer, I think those stats will even out. That's just my theory. I'd love to hear from people about that. I'd love to hear what you think about microdosing. I'd love to hear what people thought about Dennis's wisdom that he imparted upon us today. I'd love to hear from people if we think it's more common from men and women, and I'd like to hear about that. I got to tell you, I'll end with this. I've been microdosed more than I've microdosed anybody. I can tell you that's my personal experience. But I'm going to show you my love bites on this show. I'm going to show you where my heart's been ripped out. I was married for a long time, and then post that, I've probably been microdosed more than I've given that out. I don't even want to ask you, Dennis, because I don't know what you're going to say.
Because my standard answer in a situation like that is, what do you think about the pitching in the Cubs that the Cubs are offering this year? What do you think they're, the Chicago Cubs? Okay.
I'm sorry. Did you say the Chicago White Sox? You cut out there for a second.
Right
The team that's far more likely to win the World Series this year, the Chicago White Sox. Go ahead.
Back to microdosing. So
good guys, we're back.
Ladies and gentlemen, now you know what it is. So when it happens to you, call it out for what it is. Don't make excuses for it. See it for what it is, and know it can harm you. And it isn't something that you'll get over next week, because personally being or having been microdosed myself, I know the lasting effects of something like that, and I probably have done the same thing in my life, also in my relationships. Not proud of it, no, because it's I think something else that happens as you get more into the younger years, as you get to your younger years, is you want to be more authentic and more real and transparent, and to the best you can be, of course. And I imagine we're all hanging on to something in the abyss, that we visit occasionally.
Well, when you say in the younger years, you actually mean in the older years. As we get wiser, you want to be more transparent. Yeah, I know what you meant. Yeah,
just trying to put a little spin on it, but so the microdosing, just be aware of it. Know it's out there. Know you may be a victim of it right now, but now you got a name for it, and that might help you come to terms with it. And then if you think you're being microdosed by somebody, call them out. What do you got to lose? They're either going to be a period or they're going to be a question mark in your life. So
this is really good. Microdosing, we talked about. Future shows, we're going to talk about gaslighting. We're going to talk about the dark triad. We're going to talk about manipulation. You talked about people. This is kind of manipulation. It's not strategy. It's manipulation. So we're going to talk about the dark triad, people that are narcissistic. There's going to be a lot of good stuff. Please click like here on YouTube. Click subscribe. You'll get notices about our shows. Go to www.howlovebites.com for links to our shows, for the contact phone number. That's the one-stop shop. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're getting the word out. Join the process. Join this, and send us information. Send us your feedback. Send us ideas for future shows. We look forward to talking to you soon. So I am signing off from the Love Bites studio here.
Ditto to everything my co-host said, and thank you
for
joining us. And definitely tune in again, because if you thought you were amazed this time, you have seen these boys. Let me tell you, especially the guy on my side over here with the cowboy guy over here. Okay.
Ma'am.
Well, all right. Behave yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
We'll see you next time. Thank you.